Well, a warm welcome to today's talk, Tuesday the 5th of September. Now, I've been working on lots of interesting potential medicines lately. I'm not going to talk about those today because a lot of them are never going to see the light of day, unfortunately, in terms of being nationally recognised, I fear. And this is part of the reason for it here that we're talking about today. This is from the British Medical Journal, from the American regulators to the British regulators, are drug regulators for hire. And let's look at a bit of a data burst so you can decide if you want to watch this video. Now here we have, this is the article here, obviously referenced as normal. Proportion of the budget derived from industry. So what proportion of the budget of the European Medicines Agency comes from industry in 2022? 89%. Therapeutic Goods Administration in Australia, it was 96% of their budget. Food and Drug Administration in the United States, 56% of the budget. But the budget is $6.1 billion. So we can see well over $3 billion coming from industry agencies. Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency in the UK, 86%. Japanese regulators 85%, Health Canada 50%, but again, Canadian budget pretty high, 2.7 billion Canadian dollars. So we see huge amounts of money coming from industry into the regulators. Haven't quite finished with the data burst yet. Let's look at some more pretty concerning data. The Australian TGA and the Canadian HC. Conflicts of interest not available as public information. So why wouldn't they be available in Canada and Australia? COVID-19 vaccine committee members who declared financial conflict of interest. In the UK it was 32%, in Australia it was 50%, Japan it was 50%. So these were the people that decided on the COVID vaccination protocols, some of whom rightly declared conflicts of interest. Does that make it any better if you declare it? Yeah, probably a little bit. Anyway, regulators who do not routinely receive patient-level datasets. So the patient-level datasets means like whether they're male or female, the age of the patient, and other information about the individual patients. And the agencies that don't routinely receive this information are the Australian, the European, the British and the Canadian. Why wouldn't the producers of the preparation supply that information voluntarily so they can make full assessments? I thought it was a little bit strange. You might be quite happy with it, but I thought it was a bit strange. Proportion of decisions to recommend new medicines versus did not approve. So the Australian authorities, as when this article was written, mid-2022, approved 94% of new applications. The Europeans approved 88%. The British, 98%, 98.5%. The United States, 69%. The Canadian health authorities are 83%. So overwhelmingly, we're seeing applications resulting in successful approvals. And this to me, as I said at the start, is probably one of the biggest concerns, because the drugs and devices that are being put forward for approval are those researched by the pharmaceutical industry. Now, on what criteria does the pharmaceutical industry say, well, I think I will investigate compound A, but I tell you what, I'm not going to waste time and money on compound B? On what criteria do they decide that? Do they decide that purely based on how to alleviate most human pain, suffering and death? Do they decide that on the most efficacious possible molecules? Do they decide that on the molecules and compounds in their medicines that are going to cause the least possible harm? Are they the criteria they use in order to research and put forward a new device or medication? Are they? Or are there other possible considerations that could potentially influence what they decide to research? But if they do get to the agencies, then they're very likely to be approved. This is concerning to me. You might have no problem with it, of course. Maybe I'm just over-concerned. The revolving door is mentioned in the article. 9 out of 10, Food and Drug Administration, 9 out of 10 of its past commissioners between 2006 and 2019 went on to secure roles linked with pharmaceutical companies. Now, of course, the potential for a job in a pharmaceutical company, no one's saying that would have any influence on what they decided to approve, of course. Bit of the background here. That's the end of the data burst. So this goes back to 1992. US Congress passed the Prescription Drug User Fee Act, allowing industry to pay user fees directly to the FDA. 2005 in my country, United Kingdom, House of Commons Health Committee, so the Parliamentary Health Committee, evaluated the influence of the drug industry on health policy, including the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, that have been so instrumental, of course, in recent approval of certain recent interventions. And this committee, way back in 2005, was concerned industry funding could cause the MHRA to lose sight of the need to protect and promote public health above all else, as it seeks to win fee incomes from the companies. Could happen. Do hope it hasn't. But that was the concerns of the committee from the UK House of Commons. Now, British Medical Journal has been investigating this, and I must say the British Medical Journal is really quite stand out in this. It's done, in my view, exemplary work on this topic. Other journals at this juncture we won't mention, but we will point out that the British Medical Journal has been quite impressive on this. We found that industry money permeates the globe's leading regulators, raising questions about their independence. Industry money saturates the globe's leading regulators. I do apologise if you're starting to feel uncomfortable with this, but this is the nature of the situation as reflected by this BMJ article. Saturates. Dear me. The BMJ found that the majority of regulators' budget, particularly the portion focused on drugs, is derived from industry fees, as we've already seen. Now, the BMJ do point out some recent difficulties, a string of drug and device scandals. They point out opioids, Alzheimer's drugs, influenza antivirals, pelvic mesh joint prostheses, breast and contraceptive implants, cardiac stents, pacemakers. You might be able to think of a few more, but they're just a few pointed out in the article. Now, they also quote from a sociologist who's been studying this, Donald Light, in the BMJ article. Like the Food and Drug Administration, the Therapeutic Goods Administration in Australia was founded to be an independent institution. Good, so far so good, excellent. However, being largely funded by fees from companies whose products it is charged to evaluate is a fundamental conflict of interest. Okay. A prime example of institutional corruption. Pretty strong words there from the British Medical Journal article. And this is just seems to be accepted as the norm now. Pretty uncomfortable stuff. It's no longer possible for doctors and patients to receive unbiased, rigorous evaluations from drug regulators. We were looking at this in the last video on evidence-based medicine. Evidence-based medicine depends on the best available evidence, but if that best available evidence is only filtered through the good offices of pharmaceutical industries, is that necessarily optimized for my well-being, your well-being, and the well-being of your family? Countries have independent safe boards for airlines and their passengers. Why not drugs and patients too? I think that's a really good point. Really good point. FDA. It's the opposite of having a trustworthy organisation independently and rigorously assessing medicines, from the article. They're not rigorous, they're not independent. They are selective and they withhold data. Wow, imagine that. They're withholding data. The number 75 years in my mind from somewhere. Was it some data was going to be released over a 75-year period? Making a mockery of the public, you might think. Doctors and patients must appreciate how deeply and extensively drug regulators can't be trusted so long as they are captured by industry funding. Really, this is describing a bit of a mess to me. Now, going on to the topic of external advisors. Advisory panels intended to provide regulators with independent expert advice. British Medical Journal investigation. Several expert advisors for COVID-19 vaccine advisory committee in the UK and the US had financial ties with vaccine manufacturers. Not only the committees, they're paid expert advisors in some instances, as highlighted here in this article. Revisiting financial conflicts of interest, FDA Advisory Committee. This is from this article here. They're quoted in the British Medical Journal, but in this article here. This is the study here, large study. That's that study there. Check it out for yourself. That's the article there. Large study, FDA Advisory Committee, members over 15 years, so longitudinal study. Those with financial interest solely in the sponsoring firm were more likely to vote in favour of the sponsor's products. I must say I was taken aback. Sure you are too. Therapeutic Goods Administration, Freedom of Information from BMJ. Why is so much information only obtained from Freedom of Information requests? Why aren't all involved promoting openness and transparency? Because this is the way science works. We have to be open and transparent. Then we can have effective peer review. Otherwise, if someone says to me, I want you to do a peer review, and I say, what? And they say, well, I'm not telling you. Peer review it anyway. We're in the realms of absurdity, aren't we? On several levels, arguably. Conducted its COVID-19 vaccine assessment based on the information provided by the vaccine sponsors. It's a good one, mate. Don't worry about it. All good tackle. TGA said it had not seen the source, individual participant level dataset from the COVID-19 vaccine trials. At the time, we thought that TGA, for example, was making decisions based on full information. But if they didn't have the participant level data sets, age and sex and things like that, maybe their decision making couldn't be as rigorous as we would otherwise have liked. Now, do check out this article for yourself. Make sure it's just not me being in a grumpy mood. It's perfectly readable. The information's there. It's referenced. It's not in medicalese, mumbo-jumbo expert. Anyone, any literate reader could read this and assimilate the information fairly readily. And of course, it's referenced. So there we go. let's just leave that as a hanging question, shall we? From the British Medical Journal. Where is it? Oh, there it is. From the FDA to the MHRA, with a few in between. Are drug regulators for hire? Question mark. We'll leave it there. What to do? I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I suppose we could write to our members of parliament or your senators or something. I don't know. I really don't know. But anyway, that's the situation as reflected in the British Medical Journal article. Thank you for watching.